Hello and welcome to the DSR Daily for Wednesday, March 12th. I'm your host for today, Riley Fessler, joined by Minna Stein. How are you, Minna?
It's good to be back.
Welcome back. We've missed you dearly.
Did any news happen while I was gone?
No news. Nothing happened. The earth
Perfect.
stood still while
Good,
you were
as it
gone.
should be.
But now that you're back, there is news. So why don't you share some with us?
All right. The U.S. Department of Education announced a nearly 50% workforce reduction, cutting its staff from 4,133 to about 2,183 as part of the Trump administration's plan to dismantle the agency. The cuts, which will affect employees' pay and benefits, are framed as a move towards greater efficiency and accountability, though they have drawn criticism from Democrats who argue the decision undermines support for students and teachers. While Republicans pushed to reduce federal education involvement, the full dissolution of the department would require congressional approval, making it an uncertain prospect. Yeah, I don't know anyone personally who works in the Department of Education, but I do have family members who are teachers, and all of the changes in the Department of Education, not just cutting staff, but maybe making funding state by state basis, is really scaring them, and they're worried about, the jobs of people, not the teachers themselves, but the people whose salaries do come from state and federal levels, like guidance counselors and people like that. So it's a stressful time, and students, it's stressful for everyone, and students especially need support, but now the support is being taken away from them, and it's just not a good situation.
Well, again, it's shooting Republicans in the foot because, or at least Republican voters, because the states that are ranked lowest on education, spoiler alert, they're not blue states, they're red states. So reducing the Department of Education or Education Department and reducing its funding is only going to make the education in red states even worse. Blue states are going to continue to fund education. It's definitely going to see a decline, but they're still going to be fine. It's the red states that are going to produce the even worse students than they already are, and given how low they rank in education. So maybe that's what the Republican politicians want. We know that lower educated voters tend to vote Republican. So, maybe it's pure electoral calculus that gutting the education department will create more Republican voters. I don't know, but certainly it will affect red states even more than blue states, but it will affect all of them as well.
Yeah, well, I've never heard anyone say, who's overfunded? Teachers.
Teachers they're getting too much money.
Teachers have way too much money. They got all this time off.
They're way too respected in our society. They're way too appreciated.
Exactly. It's just disappointing because they're already a group of very critical employees, members of our society who deserve more, not less. And to know that they're stressed out or scared about losing their jobs or about their students. And I just feel like there's a lot of constant assaults on students and teachers. And I wish that wasn't the case. Between ICE raids and cutting the education department, it's just a lot for them right now.
It's a terrible time to be a teacher, which is already a stressful job, even in the best of times. So
exactly.
We wish them the best, but this administration is not going to give that to them. In other news, the EU announced retaliatory tariffs on $28 billion worth of U.S. goods, including steel, aluminum, textiles, and agricultural products, in response to the U.S. increasing tariffs on steel and aluminum imports to 25%. The EU's measures target politically sensitive U.S. industries, particularly in Republican-held states, while aiming to minimize damage to European economies. Both sides expressed concerns over the economic impact, with EU officials emphasizing the need for negotiation and de-escalation to avoid harming jobs and consumers. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce urged both parties to resolve the trade dispute, warning that tariffs would harm prosperity and security on both sides of the Atlantic. This kind of goes with what I was saying in the last story. The EU has been savvy enough to target industries in Republican states. So Republican states are just going to be taking a beating in this administration. We've seen the stock market absolutely take a nosedive because of tariffs, and now the EU is specifically targeting the economies of red states. I don't know if the Trump administration will be able to spin it somehow. You can only blame Biden for so long, so I don't think it'll last. But I mean, these Republican bastions are going to be hurting bad before long, unless Trump reverses course on tariffs, which it's hard to say if he will or won't. He can't seem to decide himself. It's a game of red light, green light with tariffs. So I don't know. But, the pressure on Republican states is a smart move by the EU. Because, they're savvy enough to know these will target the people that voted for him. So interesting move by the EU. I'm curious what's going to result. Good chance by the time you're hearing this, he's already reversed course on tariffs, but it's hard to say.
Well, there were a lot of things that were self-sabotaging about Republican voters voting for Trump. So we can add this to the list, the growing list. Elon Musk has informed the White House of his intention to donate $100 million to President Trump's political operation, following his previous $250 million contribution to a pro-Trump super PAC during the 2024 election. This planned donation is notable for its size and Musk's position as the world's richest person, with his involvement linked to driving significant cuts in the federal workforce under the Trump administration. It's unclear whether Musk will donate to Trump's organizations, MAGA Inc. and Securing America's Greatness, which have already raised substantial funds to support Trump's political agenda. Is this an attempt to say, look at how much money we've saved? We'll add another $100 million into the mix.
I think it's an attempt to save his own ass.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think we've seen lots of reports that Republicans are getting tired of Musk, which is not at all surprising. I've always predicted that before the end of the first year, Musk would be on the outs.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is just a naked attempt to try and save his own ass in the Trump world. Especially with Trump himself. I mean, we know Trump is still buddy with Musk, given the Tesla promo they recorded on the White House lawn yesterday, which was just
insane.
Beyond. I mean, it's insane, but it's mostly just pathetic.
Yeah.
We don't cover that story here, but to get into it a little bit, they cut a promo for Tesla at the White House, and Trump tried to liken people vandalizing Teslas to terrorists, which don't know about that one. To be fair, I do think it's stupid to vandalize Teslas because of Elon Musk. A lot of people have Teslas from before.
Fine, but it's not an act of domestic terrorism.
Yeah, it's
just regular stupid.
Is it an act of domestic terrorism? Absolutely not. I'm not defending calling them terrorists, but I do think it's a little silly to be vandalizing Teslas as some kind of political statement. It's not helpful. It's just catharsis for people, but it's not actually helping anyone. So you heard it here. Don't vandalize cars to make some kind of political statement.
Remember in 2016? All of the elections are just one long election to me. But
you mean 30 years ago?
Yeah, I remember 30 years ago in 2016 when Trump got in that big truck and he was just like a little kid, like like there's all those crazy. Was it or was I don't honestly? Was he president when that happened? I don't know. Anyways,
he dressed up as a garbage man.
That was yes,
2020.
And my point, regardless of when those things happened over the last 50 years of elections and presidency, like this ad and all of this is just giving like Trump hanging out with rich guy in cool cars. It is extremely pathetic.
It's giving like little brother trying to look cool by hanging out with his older brother. It's really sad. And it just shows that Trump is kind of a sad figure, especially in his waning twilight years, that he just kind of wants to be perceived as cool, it seems. Right. Which, I mean, perception's always been very important to Trump.
Not a beacon of strength.
No,
being the
not,
little brother, trying to
not
seem cool.
yeah, with Mr. Musk. But yeah,
The
it's
least cool
just
person in the world.
yeah, perhaps the least cool guy that ever lived. Well, something that's not cool. U.S. aid staff were instructed to shred and burn classified documents and personnel files, sparking concerns among employees and labor groups about transparency and legal compliance amid the agency's dismantling. The directive, issued via email, lacked details on proper record retention, raising fears of potential unlawful destruction of federal records, which could have serious legal consequences. The Trump administration, which has targeted U.S. aid for cuts, faces lawsuits over its handling of the agency, including layoffs and frozen funds, with critics arguing the actions undermine accountability and transparency. The situation has left many employees in limbo, while the administration claims the cuts aim to eliminate wasteful spending and refocus on U.S. national interests. Are we shocked that the administration that kept documents at Mar-a-Lago and wouldn't give them up isn't concerned about the potential unlawful destruction of federal records?
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's the point, right? I mean, they're like, oh, this could happen. No, I'm pretty sure that's what they want to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've burnt USA to the ground as quickly as possible, and now I imagine they want to eliminate the paper trail. So there's I don't know. I mean, I don't know for sure, but it certainly seems intentional. And given everything we know about this administration in the past and the present, it wouldn't surprise me if the willful destruction of records under the guise of "oops, we didn't know" is part of the game plan. But hard to say.
It certainly does seem intentional, and you can quote me on that.
Don't quote me on that, though. I don't want to get in trouble.
I don't want to get in trouble either, but like,
I'm not very brave.
come on. Apparently, you're ratting me out. David and I are going to Guantanamo. Add this to my charges. It certainly seems intentional.
I'll use a Trumpism and say lots of people are saying.
Lots of people are saying
it. It
seems intentional. It might not be, but it does seem that way. Our last story for today. The USDA has suspended funding for research and programs at the University of Maine following a dispute between President Trump and Governor Janet Mills over transgender athletes in girls' sports.
What?
The USDA paused payments while investigating potential civil rights violations related to the university's compliance with federal law. This move follows Trump's warning to Mills after she refused to enforce a ban on transgender athletes, leading to a confrontation that escalated to an investigation by the USDA. Yes, I also was like, huh? And read the article multiple times. I was like, the USDA? But yes, over research and different USDA programs at the University of Maine, they are pulling their funding. And in 2024, they gave $30 million for such programs that will not be given this year because of this fight that the governor of Maine had with the president.
And let's be clear, the transgender athlete debate is such a distraction. And it's willful by the Republicans. They have crafted this to be a distraction. Let's not forget that in December at a hearing, president of the NCAA was asked, how many trans athletes are you aware of? And are there in U.S. NCAA schools? How many do you think there were, Minna?
Was it 10?
He said less than 10. Out of 510,000 athletes, less than 10 are transgender athletes, at least that he was aware of. Is there more? Sure, probably. The point is, this is not a significant number of people. But the Republicans...
And they're not all at the University of Maine.
Right. Maybe all 10 are there. Doubtful. But the point is, this is an issue that the Republicans have managed to just like perfectly craft to fearmonger among the base. And my point isn't to say that this isn't worth fighting over, because it is. It's always worth fighting to protect the rights of minorities. But the fact that they are defunding an entire university because the president had a spat with the governor of the state of that university about transgender athletes in girls' sports is such a joke when there probably wasn't even a transgender athlete at the University of Maine competing in these sports. Or maybe one or two, if we're really being generous, of the 10 in the country.
Mm-hmm. It's so obviously a distraction.
It's so obvious to anyone who apparently isn't a Trump voter that this is not something that our president should be spending time on. The fact that this was an executive order to keep transgender athletes out of girls' sports when you're targeting 10 people in the country. It's like, you really does the president really need to be signing executive orders targeting 10 people? I don't think so.
Of course not.
And granted, I believe the transgender athlete ban wasn't just at the collegiate level, but still, it's this incredibly small number of people. More importantly, an already very vulnerable population that is already facing discrimination. Right. And do they really need the president discriminating against them more? I mean, of course, that is the point, though, is that they don't want these people to exist in our society.
And to make, I'm sure, what is already a tough time even tougher. I'm sure it's not easy to be a transgender athlete in college.
The cruelty is the point.
Yeah.
It's to make existing as uncomfortable for trans people as possible. And this is only the beginning. Well, on that cheerful note, sorry for that dark.
Going out on a high.
Do we have any whimsical things we could talk about, Minna, to give the people some levity before we sign off?
Do you have whimsy? Is there panda news?
I don't know. I haven't seen the pandas in about a month, so I don't have. I should go record a video of them today. I think
we need it.
We need it. We can put it out on the Twitter, or I can share it in our members only Discord if the members want to see some pandas. Probably, let's be honest, probably sleeping. But
falling off of something.
If that's what you want, let me know. I'll go record a video and send it to you.
Become a member and receive daily whimsy.
Yeah, daily whimsy from the DC Pandas and their number one fan, me. But. So if that's the chaser you need after these very dark stories, I couldn't blame you, and I'll do my best to get it to you. Well, that's unfortunately all we have for you today, but we've got the Deep State Radio flagship podcast coming out later today. We've got more DSR dailies for the rest of the week, and of course more podcasts from the DSR network. So until then, bye-bye.